Big congratulations to Liam Kelly and John Souttar getting picked for the Scotland squad to take on Greece in the Nations League relegation playoff at the end of the month. I'm glad to see there's no residual bitterness from Rangers towards the SFA for failing to pick any Rangers players for the Scotland team to take on Wales on the 24th of May 1972. That midweek game was a Wednesday night, I think, at Hampden. The home internationals, Scotland beating Wales by 1-0. The only goal of the game scored by Peter Lorimer of Leeds United, our pals now. Leeds United, or our rivals for the affections of Parag Marath, our rivals for the money. Give it to us, Daddy. Give the money to us. We'll spend it better. I don't know. But Leeds United's Peter Lorimer scoring the only goal of the game for Scotland against Wales on the 24th of May 1972 in front of 21,300 odd people at Hampden in the 72nd minute 72. Rangers so insulted by having no players in that Scotland team that we went off to Catalonia the very same night and occupied ourselves by beating Moscow Dynamo in the final of the European Cup Winners' Cup, not live on television. It wasn't live on television. A Scottish club winning a European trophy. It's no live on television. Only the second time a Scottish club had won a European trophy. There's only been 3 times total that a Scottish team has won a European trophy. But there you go. It wasn't live on telly because Scotland were playing Wales and the home internationals at Hampden, and you couldn't have folk staying at home to watch the telly. Watching Rangers on the telly when they could be going to Hampden to watch Scotland. 24,701 people in the Nou Camp Stadium, Barcelona, as Rangers beat Moscow Dynamo that very same night as Peter Lorimer's goal. 72 minutes, 1972. Barcelona, 1972. Rangers beat Moscow Dynamo 3-2. Moscow Dynamo, the KGB team. Leventi Beria famously, head of the KGB, favouring Moscow Dynamo. That was his team. Referees thinking twice before giving anything against Moscow Dynamo in the old the Russian league. In those days of the Soviet League, as it was, they beat in the semi-final. We beat Bayern Munich, epic semi-final. Rangers beating Bayern 1972, one of the greatest teams of all time. And Moscow Dynamo that same night were beating Dynamo Berlin, the Stasi team. Eric Mielke, head of the Stasi, famously favouring Dynamo Berlin, who won 10 in a row. You know, any team that wins the league more than 8 times in a row, obviously completely bent and favoured by the government. So I think that's really quite a wee coincidence there. It's Vladimir Putin. He's the reason there's no Russian teams in Europe this year. The Russian international side's no playing in UEFA competition because he's a total monster. He's born in Leningrad, previously and latterly known as St. Petersburg, Zenit St. Petersburg, Leningrad. The next team he would play in a European final, and of course he worked for the KGB. He made his infamous name, became a total nut job, probably since birth, but it was, he certainly got to act it out in the KGB, and then he went over to East Germany, the old DDR, Dresden, mind you, but he was a liaison officer for the KGB to the Stasi. It was a bit of a cover while he carried out all sorts of atrocities and things like that. But he's Stasi and KGB, so that semi-final in 1972, and then he's got linked to the other team that Rangers played. Because Rangers, what was it, 1971-72, that same season, Moscow Dynamo, we beat them in the finals. They can't be in Europe this season, but obviously we're still in Europe. The UEFA Cup final that season, the first ever UEFA Cup final, was Spurs beating Wolverhampton Wanderers, and Wolves obviously not in Europe this season, but Spurs still in Europe. We've played them this season, still in Europe. And the European Cup final was Inter against Ajax, the two of them still in Europe this season. So is that a coincidence? I don't know, but it's the kind of thing that's in your head and you're trying to partly keep your feet in the ground, because this tie's not over. This tie's not over. Barry's telling us today this tie isn't over, says anybody who's seen Rangers playing at home, losing their last 3 games at home. So I don't think the fans are in any way kidding themselves on that this tie's over, but also we've got to be up for it. You've got to start. We're not getting ahead of ourselves to start thinking about a quarter-final. I think a 14th quarter-final for Rangers in European competition. This is European. When I say European competition, I mean like European competition or international competition as we currently know it. I'm not talking about when we were twice champions of the world in kind of 1894 and 1900, I think. I mean, Queen's Park were 4 times champions of the world, the club world. I mean, your Club World Cup this summer. That's just Queen's Park They won it more than anybody else. They've been champions of the club world more than anybody. Well, the Victorian period. I think have Independiente won it 5 times, perhaps the old Intercontinental Cup. Or am I getting that mixed up? The Libertadores. Who knows? But I'm not talking about that. We're not talking about the fact that Celtic only won it once. They were only champions of the world once. This is back in the Victorian period. I'm getting a bit excited because we are playing. I want to think about the fact that Rangers could be playing 14th. European quarter-final, people saying, oh, well, Fenerbahçe, they only need to score 3 goals. They need to score 3 goals to beat, and they don't. They only need to score 2. They only need to score 2 goals, 2-0. There's no away goals now. That's why Rangers are now, since the away goals rule get binned for 2021-2022 season, that's how Rangers have been going away goals crazy since then, because it's not as valuable now, is it? I mean, it still has worked out pretty well. It got to a European final that very first season, but it's just typical, isn't it? But they only need to score 2, Fenerbahçe, get it to extra time, survive extra time. It goes to penalties, and they've got Livakovic, I think the Croatian chap, who was the number one at the beginning of the season, but he's now their backup goalkeeper, but he is a penalty saving expert. He was on the bench last Thursday. He's probably at Ibrox right now, training as we speak. So he could come on. You could just see Jose bringing him on in the 119th minute. Oh, he's changing the goalkeeper. This guy's a penalty saving expert. He's getting ready for the penalties. Just as Dessers pulls one back for Rangers, that's it. They're through to their 14th. I'm getting ahead of myself. It is quite an exciting time, and I'm trying to work out a way to approach this podcast, and I'm just going to hit you with all sorts of nonsense. The situation we're facing is that we've won away from home in the first leg, and Rangers don't then go out. Technically, we then don't go out of Europe historically. We've been playing in Europe for since 1956-57 season, the second ever season of modern club European competition as we currently understand it. But very early days, the 1959-60 European Cup, we did beat Sparta Rotterdam 3-2 away from home in the first leg of a quarter-final. The old European Cup, we won 3-2 in Rotterdam, and then they came to Ibrox and beat us 1-0, and it had to go to a playoff. The very scenario I'm talking about tomorrow night, you don't get a playoff now, it goes to extra time and penalties. It was a playoff at Highbury, which we won 3-2. How glamorous is that? A couple of playoffs at Highbury back in the day. Rangers playing Sparta Rotterdam at old Highbury Stadium there. We beat them 3-2, a couple of own goals, I think, for the Dutch, that are scored by the Dutch against themselves that night. But it's not really. You could also, I think, you could look at the group stages, like Champions League, the All-Style Champions League, the 4-team groups, 2007-2008, famously, we went to Lyon and we won 3-0. But then in the last round of group games, Lyon came to our place and beat us 3-0, and that put us out of the Champions League, although it did put us into the third place, into the UEFA Cup, and we then got to the final against Vladimir Putin's hometown team, Zenit St. Petersburg. I've told you about the guy, Bobby Farrell, the dancer, the guy in Boney M, and he died in St. Petersburg on the exact same date as Rasputin. Rasputin, lover of the Russian, famous Boney M song, and he was kidding on when he's dancing about, he's kidding on his Rasputin in that song, and then he's doing a gig in St. Petersburg, and that night in his hotel he dies. It's the exact same day that Rasputin, the exact same date that Rasputin died in St. Petersburg, the old Russian royal family, and that's quite an amazing thing. But we went to that final 2008 against Zenit St. Petersburg, but it would, technically speaking, Lyon put us out of the Champions League. Even though you can't see it as home and away. Well, it is home and away games in the old group stages of the Champions League, but it's no like aggregate or anything like that. That's not how it's working. But that's the kind of closest we've come to winning an away game quite comfortably. We won 3-0 and then getting put out. Since then, I've been looking through trying to find Rangers games in Europe where we have won the first leg away from home and then failed to win the home leg at Ibrox, and you've got, apart from that game in the early days against Sparta Rotterdam, you get 92-93 European Champions League, the first official, I know we had group stages in 91-92 season, but that was just a tryout in the European Cup. It became the Champions League in 92-93, and of course we beat CSKA Moscow in Bochum. That was our first away game, even though CSKA Moscow were having to host the game in West Germany because of the Russian winter. Ask Napoleon and Hitler about that. And then we drew 0-0 with them at Ibrox in the last group game. So it's a kind. I mean, again, it's not a home and away scenario like it is. Well, we did play home, but it's not a return leg, so to speak. The home and away, a knockout round, 98-99 UEFA Cup, where we beat Bayer Leverkusen, the famous Barry Ferguson pivot, the day Yanis Hadji was born. Leverkusen get beat 3-0 at home or 2-0, I think it was at home, by Bayern Munich last night in the European Cup Champions League. Excuse me a second. We beat them 2-1 away from home. Then we drew 1 each at Ibrox. Really, really tight affair at Ibrox, but we put them out of the UEFA Cup under Dick Advocat. 2001 Champions League again. The group stage, Gio scores the only goal of the game over in Monaco. We beat Monaco in the Stade Louis II. And then when they come to Ibrox in the later on in the group, the last game of the group, that infamous night where we drew 2 each with them, and out we go from the Champions League. So it's not a knockout round, just like you're playing the same team in 2 successive ties, home and away. It's within the parameters of a group stage, but it's still, you get a win at their place, and then they come back to you and kind of put you out the competition. 2007, I say Lyon is probably the best example of us having a spectacular away win and following up with an equally spectacular home loss against the same team in European competition. 2018-19, you maybe remember Steven Gerrard when he first came in and he dragged us through those 4 qualifying rounds. Still, I think, right up there and a par with any Rangers manager to get us to European final. To come in there, we'd get put out by Progress Niederkorn the previous season in that infamous match, our first match back in Europe since our days in the lower leagues under Pedro Caixinha. In comes Steven Gerrard the following summer, basically. It's at the end of the summer, and just starts ticking off these qualifying rounds and gets us such a rare achievement to get through 4 qualifying rounds and into a group stage of the Europa League. But I think it was the second qualifying round, we beat Osijek of Croatia 1-0 away. I think Alfredo got the goal. We wore that classic kind of red, I think it was special made one-off away kit. It was an absolute belter as well. I thought because it's a big red and black sock, but I think it was a red shirt with black socks. And we won 1-0 over there, and then we drew 1 each with them at Ibrox. I don't think, did Borna get the goal for Osijek on the night, or did it come off Conor Golson? I think it was a Conor Golson own goal. But Borna did enough for us to sign him from Osijek in that game. But we drew 1 each at Ibrox, having won 1-0 in the first leg over there. And most recently, and most famously, of course, Dortmund. The most comparable with the current situation. It's our first game after the group stage, and we've got through the group stage successfully. Dortmund 2021, 2022, we go over to the Westfalen. It's all yellow, they're heavy favourites, and we win by 2 clear goals, beating them by 4-2. Comes back to Ibrox, and it ends 2 each on the night at Ibrox. We should have had another goal, I think. We should have had another goal. It was chopped off kind of weirdly by VAR, which we'll talk about later in this pod. But we're up against it for a while because we scored the first goal that night. Tav, of course, the miracles he was working in the Europa League that season, but they come back to 2-1 before half time, Dortmund, and they were playing us off the park at that point. Wee bit of an adjustment. Second half, we get back into them, and Calvin Bassey just decides to take the entire Borussia Dortmund team on his shoulders as he just glides as if there's nothing. There's no encumbrance whatsoever. He just glides down that left-hand side and parks it over to the back post where Tav makes it 2 each, and through we go. But so that's a game where we've won away from home by 2 clear goals in the first leg, and then we've got a tie when we've won by 2 clear goals away from home in the first leg, and we've come back to Ibrox and failed to win. But we can get beat tomorrow night. We can lose a 4th straight game at Ibrox tomorrow night and still go through, as long as we only lose by a single goal. It's stuff like that. It's dangerous thinking, as Barry was saying. Today, you've got to go out there and just approach it like you're trying to win it. Listen, see if you get this place rocking. It's a proper place to play football. We need to light that fire in the stands. Says Barry, clearly encouraging the Union Bears to set off their flares and get us banned for the next round, even if we go through on the night. Crazy, absolutely crazy talk. How you doing, folks? This is your Fat Eck. Rangers have got the chance, the gilt-edged chance, to yet again be kicking off in European competition when it's daylight. It's still daylight, and it's not because it's the early qualifying rounds in July and early August. And yet again, we have the chance to play in a European round with the suffix final. The Germans do this thing where they call it, my German is non-existent, not bad. I don't have bad German, I just have no German. But I can memorise little phrases and all that, but the thing when you're reading through a German textbook, for example, that's just listing a whole lot of German football results, if that's the kind of thing you're into, weirdo, and it's got like 164. They have the last 64, the last 32. So they have we're in the 64th final. We're in the 164th. We only start talking about they're in the 32nd final, the 32th final. We don't even do its last 16, and then it's a quarterfinal. We only shove in the word final as a suffix after the last 16, and this is where you start to get pretty excited. I think it would be an achievement in itself just to get to the round, especially when you know you're going to get Athletic Club or Roma. That the prize just of winning this game tomorrow night or getting through this tie is absolutely massive. It's super glamorous. It's super historic. Preview pod coming to you in association with Jersnet. I know. I was Jersnet as myself and Brian on Friday night. I've not spoke to you since the week. I didn't see the week. I usually see it the weekend. I'm saying I usually see it the weekend, don't I? But there was no fit. But the Rangers weren't playing at the weekend, so I didn't. I'm saying I didn't see. But I was on that Jersnet with Brian. I was on Jersnet with Brian on Friday night. Do you see that? I was talking about. I made a what of myself? I made a cut. Now what? Right, that. Sorry, Margaret. I'm not coming back. No, that's me, Margaret. I'm done. You can get your own bourbons for now on. I'm away. But I was on that. Okay, on Friday night, and I did. It was Brian made me say. Brian Upchurch, pure evil. He just asked me at the end of the pod, and he said, "Are you happy that Rangers aren't playing this weekend?" And I thought that was, because I couldn't say no, because I was, but I need to qualify that. Rangers need to qualify tomorrow night. Rangers need to qualify tonight, depending on when you're watching this podcast. Rangers need to qualify for the quarterfinals to make us all happy and make this season just having worth endured. I need to qualify what I was saying the other night. I know all season I've been saying it doesn't matter how bad Rangers are, you shouldn't be booing the team. I get why folk boo the team. It's totally up to you. It's just my personal thing. I wouldn't boo the team. I try not to criticise the players. But it's like every time I lay down a kind of backstop of loyalty, Rangers do something to poke up. I mean, the worst ever home defeat in the Scottish Cup. That's a bit. And then they've lost the next two games at Ibrox as well. 3 in a row at Ibrox. Doesn't happen very often at all. And I was just, I wasn't meaning if Rangers had been playing Saturday or Sunday, I wouldn't have gone. If we'd been playing at Ibrox. I wasn't, and obviously I wanted us to be in the Scottish Cup, but I wanted to savour Istanbul. That's the first time we've ever beaten at a club in Istanbul. I mean, this is our first game we played in Europe after having won the Cup. Winners' Cup was against a Turkish side, and it was in Ankara, and we won by 2-0 over there. But that's the only other time. I've not been to Turkey that often, but to go to Istanbul, Constantinople, old capital of Byzantium, and do the business and do it so spectacularly, it was absolutely fantastic. It was a balm. It was something we needed to bask in. We didn't need anything else coming along. And I think even like a straightforward 2-0 win over whoever we'd happened to be playing that weekend, Forest Mechanics or something like that, even if it'd been the Scottish Cup, it'd been lovely, but it'd been kind of very domestic and very, but it was just nice to, but I don't know if this makes it badder or betterer that I didn't go to any football over the weekend. Was I being a complete traitor to football altogether, or, we circle the wagons, it's all about Rangers. Would it have been worse if I'd gone and seen somebody else? I ended up in that Leaving Grove Park, in Dumbarton. I've only discovered it just over a year ago. What a lovely park that is. You've been, is it Leaving Grove? I'm sure it's called Leaving Grove. And you go down, you walk, you can park up the side bit with the wee street with the motors, and you go down. There's various ways of getting into it, but the one bit you can walk into, you just walk down towards the water, it's the Clyde, the Clyde estuary, the Firth of Clyde. And then you get the castles over to it. But there's some houses as you're walking down towards it through the park. Big lovely path in the park, and it's kind of going down the hill. These beautiful houses as well. And I didn't realise there's people walking along. It's just a tiny wee kind of bit of prom, basically. It's like kind of promenade. And a bit of waterfront and that, and Dumbarton Rock. Over there, to the left of Dumbarton Rock, you've got the Dumbarton Stadium. Dumbarton FC. The floodlights are there, and as we walk past the houses, this massive tanker. It's gliding up the Clyde, or taking its time. Up the Clyde's Firth, the Firth of Clyde, the Clyde Estuary, and it was being piloted by a couple of little tugs. Nothing better. You're with your wife. There's a couple of little tugs. It was nice. It was beautiful, and it was out of the water. It was proud. That's what I'm saying. It was high in the water. It was colossal. Could you see the tankers? You see tankers out in the water and that in the distance, and because they're so flat. There's very little boat to them, if you like. I don't have the technical terms, even having grown up in Ardrossan and seeing the sea every day. It's living in a ferry town. I should really know but it was. I didn't realise that's because I've got stuff inside them. And luckily, as I was standing there, and it was the whole thing about Saturday and Sunday, of course, was it was sunny. I hate the sun. I'm an ex-ginger, a baldy ex-ginger. I thought when I lost the hair, at least I wouldn't. No, it's still just the same skin, this pasty skin, and I absolutely hate. Even the bit of hair I've got is grey, but I still have total ginger effect all over me. If the sun comes out, I feel very, very uncomfortable, and that's before that's before I was 23 stone. So. But it was lovely, and you look at this boats on the water. It was just breezy enough, and it wasn't proper summertime yet. But it was nice to get a break from all the darkness, and that was kind of symbolic with what's been going on with Rangers. And this big tanker is sitting there, and it's so high, and I'm like, look at the size of that. And it was like red and black. The top bit was black, and the bottom bit like the opposite, the Rangers socks, But this massive hull, huge, colossal thing. And luckily, there was a fella had stopped to talk to some folk behind us sitting on this bench. And he had worked in like the container shipping industry or whatever, and he was explaining to these folk what was going on. And me went, shut up, I'm trying to hear this guy. I'm trying to hear this guy as well, shut up. And he was talking about how there was little marks you could see on the boats on the tanker that you wouldn't see if it had its cargo inside it. It obviously dropped off all its stuff in, I don't know, Gourock, Greenock, Helensburgh, somewhere. It dropped off its cargo somewhere, and this was it, having it go up maybe that was the only way it could get up towards Glasgow, because famously it's quite shallow, and there's also some wee factoid boards running about, the Barton Castle and that. You can the Barton Rock. You can read about how Thomas Telford or something scooped out the bed of the Clyde there to make it better. And the whole point is, it's raised. It looked absolutely phenomenal, and it looked so good. And the sunshine looked so proud, looked so regal, looked so stunning, because it had shed its load, because it wasn't encumbered, by a whole lot of domestic stuff that it often. It's Rangers in Europe, that's what I'm trying to say. Rangers in Europe, and it went up, and I was taking about 25 photographs, went up past Dumbarton Rock, just looked, that was a beautiful photograph, got to get your dog out the way so I got a photograph of the boat getting past it. It was absolutely gorgeous, and then I had a wee row, and that was coming for the crowd, and I'm looking at my watch, and it was like 4:30. I think I got the fit was on, and I completely let it go. But it wasn't that I'd given up on Rangers or given up. It was just, I know it's Scottish Cup day, but and I just looked up my phone. I heard them Barton playing the day, and they were playing Inverness Caledonian Thistles. I think the Barton won the Scottish Cup 1883. I think they only won the Scottish Cup once, Dumbarton. Then became champions of the world after it, of course, as all the Scottish teams did back in the days. But they're playing Inverness Caledonian Thistle, who won the Scottish Cup in 2015. So one Scottish Cup each, and Inverness Cali scored late. I was away by the time Inverness Cali scored, so I didn't hear any roars or anything like that. And it's a very vital result for them. Dumbarton fixed thoroughly at the bottom of League One, and Inverness just getting themselves out of similar relegation problems, having a bad time. Sympathies to anybody other than Celtic, if they were to go through financial problems. Sympathies to everybody except the entire top flight if they're to go through financial problems. But fuck them all. It was really, really quite. I brought it home that I wasn't even thinking about going to another game at all. It's just about basking in the glow. So I'm sponsored by Jersnet. And I'm also sponsored by Size Matters. Size Matters, boys, doesn't it? Look, come on, listen, get mano. Listen, I've not spoken to you for a while, but we know each other well enough. It's time we started talking about these things. It's big enough, right? I mean, it's big enough, but I think, I know for a fact I would like to be bigger. I would like it to be bigger. I don't even know if it's above average. It's certainly not below average. It's probably maybe a bit above average. I think it does the job. I'm giving good reports. People go, oh, I get kind of oohs and ahs, But I feel I should stop this because fat, baldy, middle-aged man talking like that, even as a joke, it's so rank. It's unbelievable. Sorry. Crowd, the biggest attendance, biggest crowd you've ever been in. Mine's is, I think, 74th. Well, in Scotland it's 74,000. I think it's 299, 291. Scotland beating Spain 3-1. 1984ish, I think, qualifiers for the '86 World Cup. Kenny Dalglish scoring his last goal for Scotland. Will Johnson got the other two. Fantastic. What a night that was. Absolute privilege to be there. We beat Spain 3-1. First time I'd ever seen Spain in the flesh. When Spain had a proper kit, when their kit was proper. And that was good. But that's the biggest crowd I've ever been in. And the thing for me is I've never been in a crowd over 100,000. I've never been in a 100,000 crowd. I've never been in a six-figure crowd, and it's one of these things. Like, I've never seen Brazil. I've never seen Switzerland. I mean, I've never seen the Lithgow Rose. Just one of these amazing things. You just think, you do so much football, but it's when Manchester United announced the other day that they were going to have a 100,000 stadium. I thought, well, I'd written an article for When Saturday Comes 9 years ago predicting this. That Man U eventually would be the first ones to get a 100,000 capacity stadium. It's not happened yet, by the way, but they're planning to do it in 5 years' time. Did you see the stuff? It's all your Sky were falling over themselves with the new Manchester United are going to have a 100,000 capacity stadium. It's quite dramatic. I know they're just trying to fill up their schedule, but it was a bit OTT. But they've got the whole thing on with Norman plagiarised Foster, given it's going to be like a Meccano set. Then they go to the Manchester United podcast, basically Manchester United version of A Plum Like Me, and he goes, well, the main thing is the designs. It looks like it's not going to be one of the kind of Lego stadiums. I'm saying, no, mate, it's not going to be Lego. It's going to be Meccano. So Norman Foster, the guy who's building it, designing it, just basically said that off screen. It's not very fair how these things get set up. Made a bit of a fool of the fella. I didn't really. He could talk a lot better than me, but it was who can. Sorry, I'm getting quite excited about tomorrow night. But it's a wee 100,000 crowd. 100,000. It's one of these things I was wanting to talk to you about. I should have done a podcast on one day. That's why this podcast is going to be too long. But it just feels as if we've got to kind of build up to the game tomorrow night. And it does concern Rangers. It does concern me. I mean, I was born in that era. Horrendous to say this. I started going to the football between the Ibrox disaster and the Hillsborough disaster. Right in the middle. That's my start. So I was like 2 when the Ibrox disaster happened. Not even 2. When the Ibrox disaster happened, and I was at Parkhead. I was in the Jungle, Rangers against St Johnstone semi-final of the Scottish Cup. The day the Hillsborough disaster happened, just total terracing everywhere. The main stand and the rest of that ground is terracing. A huge crowd there, and I would be not even 20 years old. In 19 I was. So that's the kind of era. And it's Rangers. It was really strange because we saw the rest of the country doing what Rangers had done. Straight away what Willie Waddle had done. Willie Waddle, the architect of 1972, our only European trophy. Whereas we slashed the capacity, in the name of safety. We got to see a fantastic stadium we've got in the name of safety, but we slashed the capacity to do that. And it's then what's the same happening in England, where there's a lot of reprofiling of terraces. All the Kop just now, for example, is I ran down to Liverpool practically so I could stand on the Kop before they seated it. And I've been on it. I've sat on it as well during the Euros in '96. But it's basically the same kind of stand, almost the same rake, except it's just all seats now. And it's only now that I think England's kind of catching up and starting to get back to offering the type of attendance that it used to have in when I was growing up, we called the good old days, which was like 30s, 40s, 50s, when people were getting, crushed left, right and centre, but would go largely unreported, or it wouldn't actually kill them, so that was okay. When it was awful, but you couldn't help being mesmerised by it. As bad as it was, you couldn't help being mesmerised in my day and age by large crowds, especially on terracing. But and I've always felt a bit kind of, I was never in the Hampden capacity get reduced to about 85,000 in 1976, and I went to my first senior football match in 1977, and it was Ibrox when it was the Bowl, but already the the old Ibrox Derry, London Derry, had been changed into the centenary stand. So it was two ends of terracing, and I mean the enclosure in front of the main stand held about 10,000 all in, so that was pretty massive as well. But it was already over reducing the capacity. I think it was at 70 odd thousand for the kind of mid 70s was the capacity at Ibrox, and then obviously we brought it down until it was at 44,000 when we, the Miller Partnership did the three goalpost stands around the place. But you're also kind of held up these mythical crowds in the old days. But it's only recently you kind of realised, and I wrote this article, say about 9 years ago for When Saturday Comes, talking about how Old Trafford, has been getting 75,000 for like 10 years now, or 20 years now. It's just 75,000 or 74,000, 73,000 is a standard crowd at Old Trafford. They don't get any lower than that. Season tickets, etc. And just the demand to go and see Man U. Whereas the old days, the good old days that we talk about, Manchester United's in the 50s and the 30s, they'd never risen above an average attendance of 50,000. But yet when I was growing up in the 80s, when crowds were pretty bad and football was at a really low ebb, 50,000 on terracing looked amazing, looked fantastic. And yet the actual architecture, the actual structure of the stadiums in which they're held is pretty small. Now the kind of spectacular stuff isn't so many people packed in a big terrace, it's the actual structures that are holding these people in perfect safety, the way it should be. Ibrox, folks, Ibrox, baby, we've got to get on the back of this. Liverpool, Anfield, it's really confusing. They've expanded up to, they've just got it up to 60,000 or 61,000. Really confusing. Anfield's record crowd is about 200 or about 400 more than Anfield's current capacity, and they have just gone through years and all that legal stuff, dodgy stuff, trying to buy out the street behind the main stand so they could expand the main stand. And then the Anfield Road end gets built into a triple decker. I didn't realise it was just how big it was. I'd sat in that when it was just a double decker. But it's up. They had it up to 55,000 in the main stand, and rebuilt the Anfield Road end, get up over 60,000. I think 61,000 something. And yet the record. So you usually when you're looking through a book like the Rothman's Football Yearbook or Sky Football Yearbook, and you're going through clubs and you're looking at their capacity attendance, capacity record attendance. Rangers capacity was at 51,700, record attendance 118,567. And so you just know straight at a glance, right? Well, it's obviously the stadium's been completely modernised. That record attendance comes from its old terracing days. Anfield, it's like. Current capacity 61,209. Record crowd 61,809. What? What's that? It's from 1952. Because the footprint that Anfield's on pretty small. But now you have a situation where Manchester United, if this all goes according to plan, and I doubt it will, but if it all goes according to plan, they will have basically the capacity of Goodison, for example, filled every week. On top of Old Trafford, or on top of the Anfield capacity, they're 40,000 folk ahead of Liverpool in terms of income, in terms of gate receipts. Every single game they play, so it's a massive thing. The Rangers, this takeover that seems to be going through, it's getting confirmed by reliable sources today that it's probably going to happen by the end of May. We need to get Ibrox rebuilt. We need to rebuild those three sides. We need to get it up to 70,000. Spend 50 million on the squad and spend 100 million, whatever. Just it'll cost more than that, but get Ibrox redeveloped. Run the other three sides. I want to keep the main stand, obviously, as is, because it's gorgeous, but we've got to get that capacity up there. I think 1973 Scottish Cup final when we beat Celtic 3-2, the Tom Forsyth goal. I think that's the last time Hampden held there was more than 100,000 at a game in Scotland. It was just before my time, so I've never been in that. And the new camp, the biggest crowd I've been in, it's Scotland against England. My dad took me down to Wembley. 1983 is a midweek game. Wembley held 100,000 at that time, but it was a strange thing where Wembley would have 92,000 was the limited capacity for a midweek game. 100,000 on a Saturday and a Sunday. So it was a midweek game. We could beat 2-0. The crowd was 84,000. It's rounded up to exactly 84,000, which is always a bit dodgy. You think somebody's guessing at it, but that is the biggest crowd I've ever been in. I was 82,000 odds when we went to the new camp and we lost 2-0 to Barcelona 2007-2008 Champions League, and Lionel Messi scored against us. I was over for that one. So one of those two is the biggest, just over 80,000 is the biggest crowd I've ever been in. I would love to, I thought I was going to have to wait until Barcelona had redeveloped the new camp. They're getting that up to 105,000. That's taken them a decade since they started planning it in 2016. If that happens, maybe go over there, because I kind of keep going to Old Trafford. Kind of keep organising a trip down to Old Trafford and probably paying £200 a ticket or something like that. You know, making sure it's a day the Rangers only playing, and I can, I've got my transport and my hotel probably. Go down there, I could drive down and back, I suppose. And then I get in there and it turns out next day looking at the paper, crowd 99,974 or something. Past. Because if I can get a ticket, it will mean it's not that big a crowd. There's probably going to be extra spaces. If it's 100,000 exactly, could you just make the capacity like 104,000? So I can just finally say, go to a game, get a ticket, and it'll be guaranteed to be over the 100,000. That's something, I don't know why that's, I just feel as if it's talking this new era that we're in now, where stadiums are finally, we've done the thing of slashing the capacity so we can make stadiums safe, and now we're starting to build up the capacities again. Chelsea getting themselves up 55,000, wanting to go up to 60,000. Man City, same thing. They were, it was at 40 odd thousand. The City of Manchester Stadium, I think, when we were there for the final against Vladimir Putin's hometown team. But they went up to, they put an extra tier on the away end. I think that's up at 55,000. Anfield went 55, 60. Spurs, Arsenal, 60,000. The West Ham, 60,000. So it's getting that way. It's just Parkhead, 60,000. But there's Man U coming in, 100,000. That's it. I mean, £1 billion in debt, sacking all sorts of ancillary staff and long-serving players and that, who are ambassadors and that, sacking all they kind of folk. But just £1 billion in debt, put there by the Glazers. And when Saturday comes, a good article in it this month, latest when Saturday comes, about the absolute disgusting nature of what the Glazers have done there. Doesn't matter your feelings about Manchester United, it's just absolutely horrendous. And it'll be the fans that have to pay for it. But that's them going to get themselves a 100,000 capacity stadium. Norman Foster, I told you this before, Bilbao, it's a major thing. We could be going to Bilbao in the next round of this tournament if we then, if Real Sociedad do the business tomorrow night against Manchester United. It could be Real Sociedad the round after that, and then we could be back at Bilbao for the final. We could spend the rest of this Europa League in the Basque Country. We could play 3 more games in the Basque Country. Wouldn't that be absolutely amazing? And the thing is, Nico Williams, if he scores at Ibrox, and obviously we're going to win overall, but if Nico Williams scores at Ibrox, and then you get Mikel Oyarzabal, he scores at Ibrox for Real Sociedad in the semi-final, but we go through. And that's the 2 guys who scored in the Euros, who scored the final of the Euros for Spain when they beat England in Berlin last summer in the final. Cole Palmer, maybe he's going to score in the final of the Conference League. That'll make it all the players that scored in that game is going to. But maybe in the final, they have a local ambassador comes out and presents the trophy to the referee or whatever at the beginning of the game. It was Dennis Law when we went to 2008 down at Manchester. Maybe it will be Anthony Goycochea, the butcher of Bilbao, who scored that night at Hampden. When I went to my first, I first saw Spain playing when Scotland beat them 3-1. He scored Spain's goal that night, the butcher of Bilbao. That's maybe kind of just ties that up. Let's just concentrate on getting through this game. But that's a thing that was just with these new owners coming in. Let's get the stadium expanded. VAR is the other thing I was going to maybe call this pods. I was just going to put Fenerbahçe preview, but I was going to just call it VAR, virulently anti-Rangers. Just to get we've got Celtic fans in here, but they're not talking about films and music and my favourite pot noodles and stuff like that. No, we need to get the hate up, guys. We need to get the hits. If I'm going to start charging these memberships and things like that. I'm going to start getting money off you for this, because I'm only in this for the for that's why it's so smooth. Because I'm only in it for the dough. But we need to get me. I need to get a real kind of and get angry Rangers fans coming in as well. Virulently anti. You're damn right. VAR. It cost us 2 goals, at least 1 goal last week. It didn't. Both Cyril Dessers goals that were chopped off correctly. They were offside. They measured it. See the measuring thing that has been measured. He's offside. End of. End of. I don't understand this. I do understand it, but see all it's kind of obfuscation. See the protest, the outrage about Desser's 2 second half efforts that were ruled out offside. It's almost like the fact that we scored a goal that was over the line by the cubic millimetre has been completely ignored. That doesn't make folk go, oh aye, Right enough, probably Fenerbahçe fans saying, "Oh, come on, that's no really over the line." Well, it is, factually over the line. Aye, but the spirit of the game. Let's have some leeway. What about daylight? My favourite bit of the last couple of the last week basically has been folks saying. I think Rory Hamilton said it during commentary. There should be some leeway. You can't to be offside. I know he's trying to appeal to the Rangers fans that are watching, but this shit's getting dangerous. We need to see rules are by their very nature boring. Rules are pedantic. We don't have football without rules. I don't want to sound, the Human League, the Judge Dredd. So rules are a bore, but just to keep you from danger, I am the law. That's the thing we need. It's totally arbitrary. We decided to draw some white lines on a patch of grass, and we've all agreed to keep within those white lines. If you start the whole kind of, well, what does it matter? We start running outside the white. The bits at Hampden, they've got the grass that goes behind the goals. Why don't you just run the ball in the back there, and chip it back in? That doesn't matter. Nothing. It's got to be this. You shouldn't be able to be off by that amount. The outrage seems to be because it's really, really tight. It's unbelievably close. Are we really saying you can be off by, a shoulder, by the hit? Yes. If it's possible to measure it, then it's possible to be offside by it. It has to start somewhere. And else it doesn't exist. I'm not just saying this in a kind of willfully, buzzkill sort of way. And that's how it's taken. That's not protest against anything. The fact that, it's killing my buzz. I would like to have had a goal. We came really close to scoring there. That's effectively what it is. Ali McCoist, Rory Hamilton are going, are we been off by that? I mean, can you be offside? Surely you shouldn't be allowed to be offside by just a toenail or just a... Yes, you can. I don't know why you're getting excited. If it was possible to measure it accurately enough, if they had they could calibrate, they had the accuracy of measuring equipment, you could have like a bit of, I don't know, fungus on your toenail, and a microbe, a molecule of that comes off as you're putting your sock on it, resting your sock, and you put your boots on in the dressing room, and it comes off, and it just sits in the end of your boot, and it's not, the human eye can't see it. It's just a microbe, or I don't know any scientific expressions, but and if it could measure it, that was the only difference. That microbe, that little, blob available, observable only under a microscope on the end of your boot, was the only thing you were offside by. That was the only thing further forward than the last defenders, the last part of the defender that's allowed to clear the ball. Then you are offside. It has to be. That's the whole point. I think it's like the opposite of. It's like the opposite of. Social media, the internet, the kind of wild west, the last frontier. It's all deregulation. It's totally wild out there. We can't regulate all that stuff. There's not enough laws to govern it. It's like the wild west. Social media. We thought it was going to be great. We've got the internet, and that we've got all these platforms, Facebook and Twitter and all that, and it's going to just help everybody connect really quickly and really personally in the whole world. And it's just turned into porn, gambling, and turning everybody into a fascist. I might be talking about myself there, but it's porn, gambling, and everybody's a fascist. And bullying folk to commit suicide and stuff like that. There's obviously a lot of nice stuff happens on social media as well. I'm enjoying the benefits of social media right now by getting to spout all my nonsense in your ear. But it's like the opposite of that with VAR. Again, it's technology. This will be great. This will sort it. Oh, no, I didn't want that I didn't want that. I just wanted to see when Les Mottram is getting a goal, is chopping off the Dundee United goal, for Hill because the ball bounced back out for the stanchion, and a Partick Thistle player picked it up because he was just going to punt it back to the centre circle, but he decided not play on. That's come off the post, or that's come off the outside of the post. That's the kind of stuff you want ruled out. That's what I was wanting ruled out. The really daft stuff, really obvious stuff. No, if you're inviting in that level of analysis for the rules, this is what's going to happen. And I know it still goes really, really wrong with the incident. For example, with Diamandi up at Tannadice, where the referee can get involved, and it was his interpretation. He just sounded a wee bit angry about things, taking a bit personal against Deal. But that, at the same time, is what you're asking for when you want rid of VAR, because it's not doing it's been too pedantic. Well, that's human error. That's what you're asking for. to be in charge of football. I've seen too many so many more horrific decisions pre-VAR than I've seen after. The problem is because VAR's in there now, it lets your commentators and your presenters and all that, and fans themselves, just go utterly apeshit. And we like nothing more than going utterly apeshit. There's a real kind of confirmation bias going on. But this thing about there should be leeway when it comes to offside, there should be. Is it just me? And this is just begging you to get back to me and go, aye, like it is just you. But I mean, this isn't like an opinion. This is a right or wrong thing. In my mind, when you start saying things like there should be leeway, so how much? Because the leeway will have to start somewhere and end somewhere, and you can then be 2 millimeters into where the leeway starts and 2 millimeters outside where the leeway starts. Do you know when you say daylight? There should be daylight. That's the thing. Just say that there should be daylight. You know, advantage goes with the attacking player. Aye, before VAR, advantage went to the attacking player. You know, if there's any kind of doubt about it, but now VAR is here to measure the fucking thing. You know, and they're explaining why. You know, just like this whole thing of it doesn't look like offside to me. Shut up. Kamar Roof's goal against Brøndby, the very reason we ended up getting to our entire run, as I was talking with Big Phil, who gets in touch on the comment section in this pod here. We were talking about that the other night. That he was mentioning the game against Red Star Belgrade, Crvena Zvezda Beograd, when we played them after we played the round after we put out Borussia Dortmund. The last 16 it would be. The game at Ibrox, where they had about 15 goals chopped off for offside. You know, and all of them were correct decisions. That enabled us to win that game so handsomely that we could take the defeat over in Belgrade in the second leg. But that whole run was just powered by VAR for us, by things that wouldn't have been spotted if there'd been no VAR. Right into the group stage, where we're struggling. Maybe we lost our first 2 games in the group stage, and then we have the game against Brøndby at Ibrox, and Kamar Roof scores that goal, and I'm in the stadium. Yeah, I'm up the other end of the park, but still, it looked pretty offside when he puts the ball in the back of the net. Ali McCoist is in the studio watching on the telly and that, and he's doing the co-commentary, up in the gantry, but he's got the TV screens and that in front of him. Aye, that's a mile offside. You know, Kamar Roof is just like, I'll just put this in the back of the net because I'm a mile offside. They draw the lines, it's on. It is on. Last week against the goal we scored in the first half last week, so the first goal we scored, Cyril Desser's goal, I'm like, that's not over the line. You know, I wasn't cheering, I wasn't shouting and protesting, but it was over the line. But to the naked eye, oh, that's one of the ones that's no over the line. You know, then you see it measured. It is, and even when it's measured, they show you the kind of graphic. You've got to kind of, you know, my telly's pretty big in the living room, but I've got to kind of screw up my. Oh, I can see the bit of grass there between the front of the ball and the line, so it's definitely over the line. But we kind of have this thing of relying on the naked eye and then making up rules as we go along to try and... People are starting to believe, and it is an old man thing, I know, to keep saying, this is the way the world's going. But there's a lot of this, I'm going to choose my own truth. There will be no football. If you have daylight, there's got to be daylight for offside. Where does the daylight start? Where does the daylight start? You'll be looking between... I can see... Is that daylight peeking through there between the hairs and these socks? Are we going to measure it that accurately? Yeah, because it has to start and end somewhere, or else it's not a rule. It's not a rule that's open to interpretation. It's offside. You are or you aren't. And it goes down to is how accurately you can measure it. Within that, there may have to be certain, you know, approximations because of the measuring equipment draws kind of thick lines. Or whatever. I don't know how it actually works, but it's a measurement, so you have to go by it. And then... a lot of people, and I think it's quite a legitimate thing, talking about in the Champions League, they've got the fancier, more expensive, semi-automated VAR, and they show you when you're watching it on telly, they bring up the image, and it's a graphic image, like a little cartoon of the players that were involved, the last defender and the forward-most striker or attacking player, and they do that kind of gossamer veil, the big white thing that extends up from the line of onside or offside. It goes up, and you can see the bits that are poking through, the bits of the attacking player that are poking through, always offside. And it might go, oh, that's unlucky, but it definitely changes. It's kind of, oh, that's unlucky. He's only offside by a toenail. Whereas you get the kind of down at heel, no pun intended, Down at toe version that you get in the Europa League, where it's the red line and the blue line, they look a bit thicker on the wee pictures of the players. Seems a bit more open to interpretation, a bit more blurry, the lines itself. But that can't be offside. I don't see it. Well, you don't see it because you want it not to be offside. I want it not to be offside. But to me, Dessers is quite. His fat arse is clearly off for the first one, and the t-shirt rules his shoulder. Can you offside by a shoulder? Can you score by a shoulder? You're offside. And the reason I'm maybe a bit OTT about this is because we live in a country where we have watched if it comes in any way debatable, and we're going to have grey areas, and it's all about he who shouts loudest, because it won't be referees going, I wonder who should. It doesn't look offside to me. It's going to be which of the teams is making the most noise, which of the clubs involved in this decision is most liable to go after my job. Then we know. There's a team in this country. I find it incredible when Rangers fans have got any problem with VAR, because we've got a club who yelled for my entire life to say that every decision that went against them was part of a conspiracy, and the second we brought in a system to double check that conspiracy. I'm maybe getting ahead of myself. This is the next game we're going to be playing, but they didn't want to do it because they knew they were going to the power to emotionally blackmail and hysterically cry about anything that was going to go against them was being lost. You know, it's going to. Oh, I don't want it to be scientific. We want it to be, but we're going to moan a lot and just cry conspiracy, because that's how we, operate. We're doing a bit of that ourselves, obviously, over the years, the past 12 or so years. But I know they're offside. I mean, it's a rule. There's no, you can't have leeway, because the leeway would go down to microscopic measurements as well. I just feel as if that's a factually inaccurate argument. The one about leeway and daylight and all that. But anyway, get it off my chest. Anyway, Rangers are on the verge of a massive PDF loyal bitches. Going to get you. Download my ticket. Downloaded my ticket on Monday. As soon as I got the email and download, just make sure. I'm not going to repeat the horrors of the Union St Gilloise game, but I was walking along to Ibrox and realised I hadn't downloaded my ticket, and I had to go through all the emails with Rangers in them. Search under Rangers. I get a lot of emails for Rangers. You will as well. Before I actually found the one that was required. But I feel as if some of the folk that maybe go along at European games, they don't download it. They don't really know what's happening. I think they actually start looking for the email when it's their turn at the turnstile. What's this? It's an email. It's one, is it? Aye, pal, you got to download. Right, I better just look through my emails here. It's Thomas Cook. Holiday, that's fine. B&Q, they got an offer on this weekend. I'm just going to, my MOT's due. Right, I hit Rangers, right. Can I get a signal? And they get a signal. What's the Wi-Fi code? Get to the fucking turnstile. Get to the back of the queue. It can get quite intense. I'm going to try and get along there early, folks. Try and get yourselves in there. It's going to be a massive game. Rangers have been in a quarterfinal. One quarterfinal for every decade of my life. I'm 55, I'm in my 6th decade, and I think that's maybe alright, considering the coefficient in Scotland and 5 million population, the state of what European football's done to the Scottish domestic game. It's so far ahead money-wise. This Man United just going to build themselves a 100,000 capacity stadium in 5 years' time. Maybe that's actually okay. I'm complaining too much. It's 71, 72. I was only 2-3 years old when Rangers won the Commonwealth Cup, so I don't remember that quarter-final against Torino. Beautiful Torino, the beautiful ruin of a club. It was Torino. We played them in the quarter-final, and obviously they went on to the final. And the next time we won a European quarter-final in the 70s was Multiple Man, who gets in touch with us quite a lot in the pod here. Good friend of mine, Multiple Man, and he was, I accidentally mentioned in my excitement last week in the post-match reaction pod that Rascan's ball through to Czerny for our third goal was very reminiscent of Tommy McLean's ball through to Bobby Russell when we beat PSV Eindhoven, and I said 3-1 in Eindhoven back in the 78-79 European Cup, becoming the first team to beat Eindhoven at home in Europe after a 0-0 at Ibrox, doing it all the way around. Bad result at Ibrox, good result away from home. I've done that plenty of times. Done it twice to PSV Eindhoven as well. But that's, I was telling him I had no excuse. I had this pennant. I grew up with this. My uncle got me this pennant for when we played Cologne in the quarterfinals of 78-79 European Cup, and it listed the previous results. And it's got if you see that behind me there, it's got the results against PSV Eindhoven, which of course was we drew 0-0 at Ibrox. It's an aggregate result I've got up there, but it's just I grew up lying in my bedroom at night. So I was a kid. I was only 9. at the time. 10. Aye, 10. I was 10 at the time. And I was having a hard time getting to sleep at night. I would lie and look up my pennant there, look at my Valencia pennant. Is that a bat? Is that a bat? And look up the Cologne badge up there. Is that a goat jumping over a mountain? No, it's the double, the dome, the twin domes of Cologne Cathedral, which I've been in now. As an old grown up big boy. Seen Cologne playing Bayern Munich in the Olympic Stadium. But the whole point is we beat them and we got to the and that quarter final. That quarter final was moved to a Thursday. Thursday. Tor. It's named after Tor. The god of war, the old Viking god, Tor, Thursday, and I think it's Old English and High German. It's Donner. Donner. So are we going to get the hammer? Or is it going to be doner kebabs all the way? I don't know how it's going to happen. That's really painful. But the whole thing there was, remember the game there was a downfall of snow at Ibrox and they couldn't clear it. So the game gets snowed off the second leg. We lost 1-0 in Cologne in the first leg, but we'd lost 1-0 to Juventus in Turin. The Juventus team who'd gone to effectively win the World Cup 4 years later. We lost to them the first leg in Turin, beat them 2-0 at Ibrox. So we're quite excited. Didn't work out like that. Dieter Müller scoring for Cologne and Tom McLean equalising, but we went out on the night, but that was getting moved to the Thursday night, and it was like I watched it at my gran's. Watched live in the telly on a Thursday night. It was a very rare thing in those days, so it's kind of the only one I missed, Torino. So that was the 2 in the 70s. Then in the 80s, I was at the game with my mate where we played Stoy Bucharest. I should be talking this if we get through tomorrow night, but I just want to talk about quarterfinals. That's what we're trying to get into, and we played Stoy Bucharest 87-88 European Cup as soon as his first go at the European Cup as a manager with Rangers, and they'd beat us 2-0 away from home. They beat us 2-1 at Ibrox, but what a night. The atmosphere absolutely incredible. Is it that one? And then what have we got? See, the tricky one is 92-93. That's the next time on a quarter final, because the first Champions League, official Champions League group stage, 91-92 was effectively a quarter final group stage. It was just 8 teams. It was 2 groups of 4, and the top team in each group went through to the final. The only time they used that format. So Rangers finished second top. We're a goal away from the final at one point. We're over in Marseille, and we finished second in our group. So if it hadn't been us going through to the final, it hadn't been Marseille going through to the final, it would have been us. So that's an effective semi-final, isn't it? But very much the quarterfinals we reached then. So basically the night we draw 0-0 with CSKA Moscow at Ibrox, but also with Marseille beating Bruges. In Bruges, that's probably no bribes exchanged there at all. That's probably the moment we went out, and 2000, and we got into the 2000s. That's the 90s, into 2000s, of course. We play Sporting Club de Portugal, and I'll always remember Peter Drury when we got this. It was Stephen Whittaker saying, semi-final, Rangers semi-finals. Yes. First time in my life I'd known as being in a proper semi-final. So I was only 2, coming on 3 years old when we beat Bayern in 71-72, so I had zero memory of that. That was us in the semi-final. And we did nothing in the 2010s, nothing in the 2000s, absolutely disgusting. But we've done 2 in the 70s, so it's keeping up, and I'm already ahead of the game. I'm not even 60 yet, and we've been in the 6th quarter-final. What a night that was against Braga. What a night. A great night. The first time we played Braga in Europe, 2-0 down, and we beat them 3-2, Hadji in there with a couple of goals, but the night we beat the 2-1, I think that was actually superior. 2-1, 3-1, but after having lost 1-0 over there, and then the following Sunday goes to extra time against Celtic as well in the Scottish Cup. The Scottish Cup semi-final, we beat them as well. That was a cracking couple of days. That's one of the happiest kind of 2 games in the trot periods of my life. Doing Braga after extra time in a European Cup quarter final at Ibrox, and then doing Celtic in a Scottish Cup semi-final at Hampden after being a goal down, also going to extra time. Epic effort by that team. So this would be, I think myself, that's actually alright. I could look at Rangers getting to the 7th quarter final, and I'm only 55-year-old, 7th quarter final of my life. I think that is alright, until I realise that 3 months before I was born, we were in our 7th quarter final in Europe in 10 years. Or 9 years, but 10 seasons. Unbelievable. We were in 3 straight. The first time we got to quarter final was that game against Sparta Rotterdam in the European Cup. Then we got the following. We got through the semi-final, got the record European doing in a semi-final by Eintracht back in 1960 in the 60 European Cup. And in the following season, incredibly, this is the thing about Rangers getting to a quarter-final, we played another German team, another West German team as it was then, in a quarter-final of the Cup Winners' Cup, Borussia Mönchengladbach. And we gave them the record doing in Europe in a quarter-final. I'm sure it's still the record for a doing in a European quarter-final. We beat Borussia Mönchengladbach 11-0 on aggregate, having lost 12-4 on aggregate to Eintracht Frankfurt. 6-1 at Ibrox. No, 6-3 at Ibrox and 6-1 over there, I'm sure it was, in Frankfurt in that 1959-60 European Cup semi-final. So I think it's still the record doing for any club in that semi-final. But the following season, quarter-final, we beat Borussia Mönchengladbach 3-0 in Mönchengladbach and 8-0 at Ibrox. That's quite incredible. And, of course, that was us getting to the first Cup Winners' Cup final, 1961, beat Wolves in the semi. And then the season straight after that, we get put out in the quarterfinals of the European Cup by Standard Liège, I think it was. So we're on 3 straight quarterfinals, 60, 61, 62, and then Inter put us out at 64, I think, 64, 65. They put us out the semi-finals, so the quarterfinals of the European Cup. That's 4. We lost to Leeds. Oh, we got to the final, obviously, 67. Cup Winners' Cup. I think was that Slavia Sofia. I think we beat them in the quarter-final, and we lost to Leeds in the Fairs Cup quarter-final, 0-0 at Ibrox, 2-0. We lost at Ellen Road. That was 1968, and then 68-69 season under Davy White, we beat Athletic Bilbao in the quarter-final of the Old Fairs Cup. So it was 7 quarter-finals in the space of 10 seasons. In the 60s, or from 59 through to 68, 69. Absolutely unbelievable. And so this would be Rangers' 14th quarter-final if we're to win this game tomorrow. Any other news this week before I start talking about Barry? Yeah, there's the 26.7 million shares that were released by the club, that are made available by the club, that brought in £5.34 million. Now, listen, I've been, always talk about Heat, 1995 Michael Mann film, and I've been struggling for you. I know I could try and work out what's going on there. We think it's because the directors who are owed money for the money they've been putting in to finance the club, and that's why we took out that loan for that bank today, because they're not going to do that anymore, because directors are going to get paid off by this, Parag Marath and the guy Kavanagh, who come in to buy the club, the takeover. So this is them, buying shares for their debt or something. Listen, I've been watching Heat, say, for 30 years now, probably, 100 times a year. And there's a scene where they've just done the bank job. So they've just done the security truck job. It's the stealing the bearer bonds. And Neil, who's the head of the crew, he goes to meet in a car park. He goes to meet Nate, who's the fence, who's going to fence the stuff that he's stolen. Played by John Voight, who's become a right-wing nutbag. But what a performance it is, impersonating Artie Bunker. But he goes like that, right? 1.6 million. 1.6 million, right? 40 cents in the dollar for the street, right? You just get 40 cents in the dollar. So that's 640,000 to you. There's 150,000 front money. I'll get the rest of you in 3 days. And I'm all right at that point. I'm kind of keeping up at that point. And then he goes, do you know who's, these are bearer bonds. Do you know whose bearer bonds you've just stole? And De Niro looks at it and he goes, Malibu Equity Investments, Roger Van Zant. He's got investment portfolios for drug companies in the Cayman Islands. He runs their money offshore and that kind of thing. That's so what he's got insurance. That's the point. He collects 100% for the insurance, right? So I'm trying to keep up this 1.6 million. Maybe buys them back for 60 cents in the dollar, or buys them back for 60% from you. So instead of going to the street, that's an extra 320,000 to you. But at this point, I'm starting to struggle. But it's like, if you go to the street, normally you get 40 cents in the dollar for anything you've stolen. But if you go to Roger Van Zant himself, he's already getting his 1.6 million back, 100% insurance, but he'll buy the bearer bonds back on the fly for them because he's a bit of a crook. He's a massive crook, as it turns out. But he'll, instead of 40 cents, he'll give you 60 cents in the dollar if Nate thinks he can persuade him to give him 60 cents. That's 320,000. But it's fine, I'm kind of keeping up with that. But then later on in the film, at the famous bit where, where Michael gives it, for me, the action is the juice. The crew knows that the police have hacked in on them. The heat is just around the corner. That's the whole point of the title of the film. And De Niro's saying, blah blah blah. We want to get, and Michael's giving it. Well, we want to kill Van Zant because he tries to kill them. He doesn't give them the money for the bearer bonds, and also he tries to kill them in the process, but they kill his guys. But he's like, I want to get Van Zant, and then Neil's going, we all this heat on us. Do you want to be playing World War III in the street with Van Zant? He goes, no, I want my 750. Michael goes, I want my 750. What does that mean? I hope, is it something? Did somebody help me? I'm in all sorts of Facebook groups and whatever about heat. Does anybody know what 750 is? It street slang amongst criminals in the LA area for revenge because they want to get Van Zant. They did get Van Zant, but Michael's dead by that point. Is that what? Because if it's, I've been trying to work out how he's getting that for the. I've been taking the $960,000 is what they get at 60 cents in the dollar, and if you take the $150,000 front money, it still doesn't. There's no, and they're splitting it between four of them, but it should be between five of them. But one of them's Wayne Grove, and they're going to off him. They're trying to off him. They fail to do that as well. They're a really bad crew actually when you think about it. But divvying it four ways and even taking does Nate get a bit? Is it 750? Is it 750,000? Is that what they all get total or? So financially, I'm not very good, but the whole thing is, it looks like things are moving. Things are very much moving, and Rangers are hoping to move towards a European quarter-final. Russell fucking Martin. Are you kidding me on? Southampton, is it because Southampton beat Leeds in the playoff final last year in England? He gets sacked in December. This, again, are we starting to do that thing of treating Russell Martin's supposed to be a genuine rumour to be Rangers manager. He's going to be the guy who's going to come in as full-time manager for next season. I like the fact that he's a vegan and a Buddhist. We need a bit more of that. About Ibrox, I will say that. And that photograph they keep showing of him, there's a photograph on Wikipedia, side on. He does look like it's David Bowie's Low. David Bowie's looking really good, the hair and all that, and the hood. It's a David Bowie Low album, which had a big impact on the casual thing. Yeah. But how is this idea? I mean, it's a nice goal he scored against Hearts that time. Him and Jamie Murphy 2-0. Do you remember that? Not near the because it's a fucking terrible time at Rangers. We just remember him making an absolute arse of himself in the Scottish Cup semi-final. No very, but just because he's a bad player doesn't mean he's not a really good manager. And he's done stuff. Swansea, good reputation. MK Dons, horrific club that shouldn't exist, or shouldn't exist the way they do. But it's that's fair enough. He did stuff there and get Southampton promoted via the playoffs. That's fine, but that reeks to me of championship level in England. That's Scottish Premiership level. We've just pasted Fenerbahçe 3-1 in Istanbul. Jose Mourinho's Fenerbahçe. We're not doing championship level. It just I don't get it. Barry did his pre-match presser today. This afternoon. He was good. I'm really impressed with Barry. I did worry about him, but he's using task as a verb today, wasn't it? I'm tasked. Trying to get us more flexible, and it was really good. He looks the part. He still looks like a wee boy to me, of course, but that's just me showing my age. But he sounds the part too. He's really confident getting back. He's not trying to be overly flowery in what he's saying. He's not trying to invent a vocabulary that he clearly doesn't have. But he's sincere and he's ready. He's on it. He's very much on it. He didn't want to give too much away, so we know that Robin Proper, by the sounds of things, he's still kind of semi-concussed. I think he's been back in training. He's been back with the team. But there's been a few issues for the team. Is what it sounds like. Robin Proper is not going to be around for this game, and that seems only right because he took a proper sore one from his goalkeeper last Thursday. He was out for the count for a while, and he looked seriously groggy when he got back up. Apparently, 2 or 3 players need checked on tomorrow to see if they go over the kind of light training they had today. And Barry's hoping for some good news. You say, but he was having a wee laugh there, saying you don't expect me to confirm who is injured and who isn't. But straight away, I'm just thinking Souttar's out, isn't he? Souttar's out. I think so much of this depends on John Souttar. The goalkeeper, even though he took out Robin Proper last week, he probably took him out because he wasn't John Souttar. I think Jack Butland is our best goalkeeper when John Souttar's in front of him, and John Souttar isn't in front of him very often because John Souttar is injured a lot. It wouldn't surprise me if Big John is out. But Barry was saying, that's just me being a total doom monger there. No confirmation there whatsoever. Barry was saying that he may have a couple of tweaks tomorrow. He's generally saying he's not going to tell us too much about the way he's going to put the team out. He's not even telling us who's injured. So there might not be anybody injured. There might not be any problems at all with the team. He's just trying to play a bit of a fly one on Jose, and he does have that kind of look on his face, but you couldn't tell. You wouldn't be able to tell. He's so self-effacing that you wouldn't know. It's quite good. First time he's had real time to coach the players. And he's talking about you have to be flexible in any game, not just Europe. This is all questions he's getting asked by Luke Shanley et al. In the press conference. And he was saying you have to be flexible. And I think he was having a few goes at, or certainly having a go at Clement on that point anyway, the lack of flexibility. I know people out there very upset the fact that Clement wouldn't change his formation. That's absolutely fine, especially when Barry does change the formation last week, and it's a fantastic result. But I think Clement was the one area, the one arena in which Clement was almost perfect. It was away from home in Europe, so I can't really go in there and criticise him on that. But we have lost a European game 4-1 at home in Europe this season. So, and last season, Clement, that would be enough. That would be enough. 4-1 in 90 minutes would be enough to put Fenerbahçe through tomorrow night. And last season, of course, we drew in the Stadium of Light, Estádio da Luz, with Benfica, second time in our history. Epic draw with Benfica in the first leg in the last 16, and they come over here and they beat us. They beat us, but good. Did I mention a VAR? As I was going on about VAR, something made me think there. We had the decision against Brøndby, and then against Dortmund in the game that kind of announced us post-Christmas, post-group stage as being a contender for getting to that final in 2021, 2022. Nobody even spotted the penalty. Rangers were playing really well in that first half in the Westfalen, but the penalty, the handball that gave us a penalty that got the scoring going that night, nobody was appealing for it. None of the commentators noticed it or anything. It was VAR that got us that penalty. I'm just going to throw that in there. VAR has certainly helped us in Europe. So it was, Dessler's just got to hold his runs back by a fraction of a second, hasn't he? It was Barry giving nothing away today. He's saying that the approach has got a bit more flexible, so if things go. I think the way he was talking is if Fenerbahçe come out and pick 2 or 3 goals past us straight away tomorrow night, we've got a way of adapting to that. We're going to be able to play them both ways. He's preparing the players for the fact that Fenerbahçe are going to be raging. They're up against one of the best managers in the world. He's going to be all out, and he's ready for the dark arts as well. Somebody's trying to ask him, Barry, do you want the job full time? You think if you can beat Fenerbahçe tomorrow, then beat Celtic at Parkhead? And he's just like, no, look, I've got 3 months. He doesn't even get into it at all. It's really good, really professional. I've got 3 months here. That's the contract I've been given. I just want to do that to the best of my ability. I think it goes without saying that that would then be he's put his hat in the ring at that point in time. But he doesn't even want to mention that. He's not taking it on board at all. People are saying to him, "Oh, but the fact that you're 2 goals up could be a pressure on you, could be a pressure on you and on your players." Well, that's you've got to handle it. He's very much about let's get this place rocking. Ibrox is a fantastic place when you play European football. He's saying, I think some of the guys in here played European football matches before at Ibrox. I thought that was a bit weird. That was one bit he went wrong. They've all been playing European football matches at Ibrox all season, Barry. But he was. I've probably just mentioned somebody who hasn't. But he's. I've forgotten somebody who hasn't. It'll totally correct me on that one. But generally, his presser was absolutely fantastic, and he's been asked about, Jose is going to be up to the dark arts. He'll be doing something, saying something, or trying to. Well, someone he says, nah, that's fine. He says, he's seen you were over celebrating last week, and I think he handled that really well, Barry. He found that kind of third way. He didn't go, no, we didn't. Didn't he go, maybe we did. We should tone it down. He just said, I tell my players to celebrate. You should celebrate every victory. But I think get the music on. Get on the bus, have a good laugh about it, and enjoy the moment. You got to savour it, and then you move on to the next game. And he says, but I'd be an absolute idiot if I thought this tie was over. And that's a horrible thing about this tie. Fenerbahçe more than capable of beating us, more than capable of beating anybody in their day, probably. But if they do it, it then becomes another boot to the boss in this season of boots to the boss. It's a rebuild season, and it was supposed to be a rebuild season. I wasn't really expecting much more than this. I think if we get to the quarterfinal, that's us going over the expected performance level that was basically set out by John Bennett and the manager at the beginning of the season. We don't even have our own stadium at the beginning of the season. If we did go to Queen's Park in the Scottish Cup, that's the moment we went way below the expected performance level. But the kind of medium all the way through, it's been rebuilding. It's been just trying to basically function in a way that keeps us trading. So somebody will come in and buy us, and that is what has happened. I think the directors that are in just now deserve real credit for getting that sorted. Fenerbahçe, the danger from them, their goals. I basically want Rangers to go. I don't think Robin Propper's going to play, so we want Balogun playing from the beginning. I can't help thinking centre halves are just a horrendous thing for us this season. The centre halves just never last the whole game. You know, be it a League Cup final, be it Manchester United at Old Trafford. It's just making a little infinitesimal difference. I would go with the same lineup and formation as last week, except you've got Balogun in instead of Proper as one of your three centre halves. And there's an argument there for Dujon Sterling to start the game on that right hand side instead of Ridvan Yilmaz. Although Ridvan Yilmaz, if we want to take the game to Fenerbahçe early doors, he's maybe better at that than. And the rumour is that Alan St Maximin, you'll know by now by the time you hear this, the rumour is he hasn't travelled. I heard this in the Rangers Review. As most of my information is from the Rangers Review, which is basically the Herald of the Evening Times. So these are reliable journals. As in, there's a rumour that St Maximin, who gave us, it was a good battle down that our right hand side with St Maximin and Sterling last week. St Maximin, that whole second half when he came on as a sub, was giving us real problems, but never quite managing to get them a goal. So perhaps there's an argument for Sterling to start there tomorrow night, but I'm not too bothered. I would go with the same formation, and I think for once you have an Ibrox that is willing for Rangers to be patient, is quite happy for Rangers to play on the break at home. We know what's at stake here. We know who we're playing. The club we're playing, they don't get to European finals, not have you? I kind of resent sometimes I would love to go to a big game in Istanbul, a derby in Istanbul and all that, but I kind of resent a lot of the hullabaloo about these clubs. But there's no doubt about it, they've got amazing players, some players I'll be really privileged to watch tomorrow night, to see them in the flesh, but I want to see them getting pumped. I want to see Rangers doing them, but there is no doubt, I think the crowds just now, the Ibrox crowd will be quite happy to see Rangers kind of sitting back and hitting on the break. We know what we're up against, and we know who we're up against in terms of the opposition manager, one of the all-time greats, Mourinho, a historic great, as Barry himself is always careful to point out. And the whole thing with Fenerbahçe is they've won twice away from home in Europe this season. They've played a couple more European ties than us this season because they started earlier. They started in the second qualifying round of the Champions League. They get put out by Lille in the third qualifying round when we were getting put out by Moscow Dynamo, and then they had to play that playoff round in this Europa League after the group stage when they put out Anderlecht quite easily. But they've only won twice away from home all season in Europe, and it was both times by a single goal. The very first tie was away to Lugano of Switzerland in the Champions League second round qualifier. They won that 4-3, a Dzeko hat-trick, and they played it at Thun. It was played at Thun's ground. Lugano have been playing at FC Thun's ground all season. Still not even playing at their home stadium. There's only 6,000 people there or something like that. Not really a hard task. So they beat them 4-3 away from home and then beat them again. I think just by a single goal again in the home leg to put them out, but then they lost. I think it was on penalties, or just narrowly anyway, to Lille, who are playing just shortly in the Champions League. They're still in the last 16 in the Champions League, so a good side, Lille. And then they dropped into the group stage, and their only away win, a lot of draws, Fenerbahçe, their only away win was at Slavia Prague after being 1-0 down. So they won 2-1. So the only away wins they've had, two of them were both by a single goal. We're in a shout here, troops. We are in such a shout. We really are. I'm sorry, it's a horrendously long podcast. See what I'm going to do from now on, and I promise I'm going to do this now. I thought I should have spoke to you on Monday. I should have got a lot of this out my system on Monday, so I could just keep these pods to under an hour at least, because this is getting ridiculous. I know the video will get out of sync, etc. as well from my boring mouth moving. But the goals that Fenerbahçe score, some of them are things of beauty. They've got a lovely construction in there. That front trio, the trident design of the Manchester United new stadium. It's folks, and it's like a clown circus. It's like a circus tent. It's quite funny. But that over the kind of see-through roof, the dangling, it's like Bedouin tents off big hanging poles. Never ever seen before. If you've never been to Munich, if you've never seen the stadium that Munich built for the Olympics and that Bayern Munich moved into in 1972, over 50 years ago, I'd never been anything like that at all. And I told you already, we're talking about Bilbao, it was Sir Norman Foster who designed the Bilbao Underground, or did a lot of work to the Bilbao Underground, maybe just the stations, I don't really know. And it is lovely, because I've been there, but of course the famous Wembley. It's really, the Twin Towers at Wembley went with the old Wembley. We need to get a similar icon for the new one. Oh, he's an arch. Who would have thought of that? So Norman Foster. That's why he's such a genius. It was the old San Mamés. Well, San Mamés, where the stadium's going to be, where Rangers could be playing in the quarter-final. San Mamés, Athletic Bilbao's replaced the old San Mamés, La Catedral, amazing stadium. When I was there in 2007, 2008, it was the old San Mamés. Famous and visible throughout the city for its big arch, the exact arch that it had over its main stand. And I'm sure Norman saw that, being an architect, kind of interested in architecture. He probably noticed that himself when he was over in Bilbao endlessly to get the money for. I don't know who he plagiarised for the underground, but that's something to pay. So Fenerbahçe, I've been looking at the goals that they've scored in the Europa League so far. They the 2 goals they scored. They beat USG the first group game. They beat USG 2-1 at home, same as we did in our last group game in the Europa League. But the second goal was an own goal, but the first goal they scored that night, see the centre half that get injured trying to stop Desser's goal, the one that counted in the first half last week. The guy that came on for him, he scored against us. That was Desser's fault as well. A terrible player, Desser's. He came on and scored against us to make it 1-1 on the night last Thursday. That thing where he hooks the ball over his shoulder. The centre half that he'd replaced, he did the same thing against USG. Kind of more square on the goals. But it was like, centre half nods it back. It was a corner or something like that, free kick. And the centre half goes up and nods it back across the goal. And he hooks it in. The whole thing protecting the ball with his body as he just kind of hooks it straight over his shoulder and right past the goalkeeper into the roof of the net. They're a big team. Dzeko's tall. They've got these centre halves. They're quite a tall team. So a lot of high balls. As Barry said that in his presser today, they do like to get balls into the box here. Absolutely right, but they do, Barry. They like to swing in across, and they're quite dangerous from them as well. So what was the next game? That was versus Union St Gilles. I waited 20. They drew one each 20. It was a lovely goal. Dusan Tadic. It was Amrabat. It's Fiorentina or whatever. Man United. He was in the midfield. Beautiful ball he put through. Defence splitting ball to Tadic, who's just a beautiful footballer. It was a really cultured finish. Really beautiful touch from Tadic to equalise against 20 in the Netherlands in Enschede. Drew 1-1 at home with Manchester United. That was in the series. It was a close range header from a St Maximin cross from the wing. So that's the kind of thing we're going to look forward to tomorrow night. Hopefully not, if St Maximin not playing. Hopefully, that's the rumour anyway. They get beat 3-1 by AZ in the Netherlands. Their goal, I think, missed a penalty as well. I think in the series missed a penalty, and then he gets a goal in the series to make it 1-1 at a time. And it was Dzeko kind of drifting into the corner, running about just outside of the box. And he was at the corner of the box, and he turns and just plays this beautiful ball. Dzeko, he's got such delicate feet for a big man, great feet for a big man. Dzeko, what a touch he's got, and he plays it over to end the series, who goes in and basically lets the ball take a bounce, and just judges it. The goalkeeper's coming out right on top of him, but he nods it down and it goes through the goalkeeper. That trident, Manchester United's new stadium, looks like the trident that they have in attack. Fenerbahçe, it's Tadic sitting as the 10, and you get in the series, and Dzeko. They're all combining for half of these goals that they score in Europe. They work really beautifully together if you allow them to. Didn't quite manage it last week, so hopefully we can keep them quiet again. But I think you have to see something from these guys. You have to expect they're going to do something against us. When they beat Slavia Prague, they were a goal down, and then Dzeko hit a shot from the edge of the box, first half equaliser. Just a cracking volley, just thumped the thing from a standing start, one corner of the box, right at the opposite top corner of the net. A brilliant goal. And then I was in the series. In the series, it was Tadic just cushioning. Somebody's whipped the ball over from the left wing right over to the back post, and Tadic goes in there and just cushions this thing. It's a cut back and a layoff and a wee kind of half volley all in the one. Just cuts it back, completely opens up their defence, and it's in the series in there for a real close range boot over the line to win that game 2-1, the last away game. They've won. They lost 2-0 at home to Athletic Bilbao. They drew 0-0 at home with Lyon. Their last group game, it was Midtjylland. They were 1-0 down at Midtjylland. Then they were beating them 2-1. Midtjylland equalised. They just creeped through by a goal difference in the last place. That was possible to quit in 24th place. Fenerbahçe, but Dzeko, a brilliant Dzeko ball through to end the series. Kind of splits a bit like Nico Raskin's ball through to Czerny last week for our third goal over there. So in the series goes in and chips the outcoming goalkeeper from quite close. Oh no, that was the middle of the box, just beyond the penalty spot. Beautiful goal, and Dzeko gets 64th goal in European competition. He's been playing European competition for like 22 years, I think. Edin Dzeko, he just drifts to the front of the 6-yard box. It's the Simiak. It's a guy's name, Szymanski, the Polish winger. He puts the ball in from the left-hand side. Great ball to the front post area. Dzeko goes in there and just a really cultured finish. Flashes it into the bottom of the net. So they beat Anderlecht 3-0. Tadic, close range flick on header from a header from the kind of back of the box. That one of them was they just dominate aerially. Dzeko tucked away a pullback from the byline, classic poacher stuff in the series. Absolute monster of a header from deep, really towards the edge of the box. Again, after a pullback from the byline. So this thing hitting the byline, pulling it back, or swinging it in from the wings. They're great in the air. They really are great in the air. And they've got some deft touches as well. They do the second leg of that game. They drew 2 each in Brussels with Anderlecht. A bit of a riot went on, held up play for a while, but there's a couple of duff goals. They gave away a duff goal, a slack pass back, and Anderlecht did the same thing, slack pass back, but it was Dzeko that was right onto it, and he squares it to end the series. And I think the second goal, I don't know who the guy was that scored they made it 2 each on the night, but again, it was another one. It's a corner, it was a header, centre half, big guy heading it back across the goal, and then comes another guy heading it in. Aerially, they're a massive threat, so keep them away from your box, Rangers. Coming up at 5:30, coming up from 5:30 on Sky Sports News, it's an interview with Jose Mourinho. Jose Mourinho, press conference live. Did he mention Ibrox? Doesn't he mention it's the Rangers against Fenerbahçe? It's just Jose Mourinho's going in for presser live. So all the quotes with Jose Mourinho, you won't hear any of them on the Fat Egg preview pod because he's a character, Jose. He's a character, but hopefully we can talk about him in nice terms tomorrow. But fuck him and fuck Fenerbahçe. This is about us. This is about us continuing to be Scotland's premier European football club and trying to just take history, positive history out of this season, which has been a bit of bad history with defeat to Queen's Park. For me, it's just about getting to the quarterfinal. I do not see it. This is a good thing for you. This is really good because I am always 100% wrong on our predictions, etc. I cannot see us getting past anybody in the quarterfinals. I think this is as far as we can go as the quarterfinals. When you think how all out we were, the great thing about the win last week, it was really cultured. I've started using the word cultured in the last minute or so. Sorry about that. It was really intelligent. It was really impressive. It was slick. It was entertaining. It was explosive. But we were all out. And defensively, especially, it was really, we were getting our foot on it. We was getting a toe on the ball. The crosses were still coming in. They were still getting in, but something had been taken off them by Sterling or by Ridvan on the wing. It was like we were at our maximum. We won by 2 clear goals, so I suppose you could say we could go and get a draw in Bilbao or Rome doing something like that. But I think this is it. I think this is as far as we get, and I think this is only as far as we need to get. Just get to that point in time where it's, you got the suffix final on the end of the round in which we're playing, and you've got it's daylight when Rangers kick off. So many times a few times in my life we've been out of Christmas, out of Europe before the clocks go back. To still be in Europe after they've gone forward would be absolutely phenomenal. To have European football in April is a beautiful, beautiful thing, a life-affirming thing. Barry wasn't asked in his press conference today about the bank loan and the attendant kind of media confirmation that this meant the takeover was going to go through by the end of May. We don't even know how much money they're going to put into it, like that, but we're all just guessing it's going to be mega bucks. But Rangers, it's like you're kind of, if we could win this tomorrow night, it's like you're going on holiday. You're going on holiday in the middle of a house move. You're moving house, but it's like, we'll just stop for a while, go on holiday. No, we're getting new owners in. We're getting all this stuff. This money's going to get. We're going to pay off all the directors and sack all the players and sack all the management and expand the capacity of Ibrox. And you want to go on a European adventure? You want to go to the Basque Country for like 3 straight games? But that's what we do because we're Rangers. And ultimately, especially in Europe, we are utterly, utterly chaotic. But who goes on Europe? Who goes on holiday in the middle of a house move? Really posh folk. really just folk who are just a wee bit better than everybody else. We are the people. Enjoy yourself, troops. Enjoy this game tomorrow night. Bit of patience is required, but just keep singing. Just keep backing our team tomorrow night and enjoy another epic Thursday Europa League night at Ibrox. Thanks, folks.